It is time now for today's Mark Teixeira Report, brought to you by PC Richard and Son. Mark, how you doing?
I'm doing great, gentlemen. How are you?
We're doing great. Before we talk about the overview of the Yankees winning, as an ex-player, an ex-world champion, how impressed were you by Gregorius's 12-pitch, with Gardner's 12-pitch at bat? Yeah.
We were talking about it during the at-bat, and the first few pitches were like, this is a pretty good at-bat. And as we kept going, it's like this guy, Gardy is fouling off some nasty pitches, up in the zone, down in the zone, dirty sliders. It just kind of shows that's a Brett Gardner at-bat. And even if he hadn't gotten a hit, it still would have been a great at-bat, but what it meant to the game made it that much more impressive.
How good a teammate was he?
He's one of the best I've ever played with.
What makes him so?
Because he's one of those guys that appreciates his success. He wasn't a highly recruited kid out of high school. He wasn't a high draft pick. I think he was a fifth rounder. Was never really a guy that got a lot of Baseball America and MLB Network type hype when he was coming up. And he just goes out there and does his job. He's been one of the most solid Yankees over the past 7-8 years. Has hit plenty of injuries and come through, and just a guy that you can root for.
And then you have Frazier, who's been here for 5 minutes and seems like he's as much a leader. How difficult is that to come into a new team and take on that kind of role?
Frazier's one of those guys that you loved watching him play as a Red and a White Sox, because he just seems to enjoy the game. He's got that big smile that, like, did someone just tell you a joke smile? I mean, he's always, like, laughing even when he's at the plate. He's got that funny helmet tilt when he's hitting. But the fact of the matter is, as much as he might strike out and his average is down a little bit, he puts together good at-bats. He really does, and he plays a heck of a third base. I've been really impressed with his third base. And again, I think a guy that just he gets a lot of respect from his teammates because he plays the game the right way.
Let's talk about overview. How unlikely is it what the Yankees did down 0-2 to a really great team?
It was very unlikely, but as you step back from the series and really look at the Indians team that started Game 1 was not the team that we saw in Game 5. And the reason I say that is that Kluber was a different pitcher. I mean, Kluber, I don't know if it's his back. There was talk yesterday after the game that he said that I was good enough to pitch and I was healthy enough to pitch. That's not a good sign. When your ace says I was healthy enough, he obviously had something going on. His pitches were flat. He was missing his spots. He wasn't the Cy Young winner that we'd always seen. And also, you lose your number 4 hitter in Game 2 at Edwin Encarnacion. It's almost like the entire lineup was affected because that offense was anemic. I mean, other than the grand slam by Lindor, that offense couldn't do anything against Yankee pitching. So I think the Yankees just kind of took advantage of an Indians team that started the series as the best team in baseball, but by the time they finished it, was not the team that we thought they were going to be.
I guess the stat that jumps out at me, Mark, is just they crushed left-handed pitching during the year, and they couldn't touch the Yankee lefties. So what does that tell you?
Just like I said, they missed Encarnacion.
But still, they go that big. That's one guy can make that big of a difference.
No doubt. I think one thing that I was talking to Tim Kirchin about, a guy that knows as much about baseball and has watched every postseason series for the past 40 years. The Indians seem to understand how hard it is to win a World Series. And what I mean by that is they were so close last year. And everyone talked about this entire season. Everyone talked about how close they were last year. And they get into the playoffs, and they seemed tight. They seemed like they were pressing. They seemed like here we go again. And I think the Yankees took advantage of that. I think they played loose. I think the Yankees had fun. I think the Joe Girardi gaffe in Game 2 actually brought them closer together because it was like, hey, now we have even more going against us. Let's just go out there, play, and have fun and let the chips fall where they may.
All right, let's piggyback on that because we talked about this earlier, Mark. people have this narrative. Well, the Yankees did it for Joe. I can't. Maybe I'm dead wrong. I think it's laughable. Players win for themselves. Joe Girardi's not the warm and cuddly guy. I think everybody respects him. But I don't think that Tanaka was on the mound in Game 3 going, okay, I got to nail the splitter for Joe. I just think that's a false narrative.
You're exactly right, Michael. And this is no disrespect to Joe Girardi because I love the guy, but he is one spoke of the wheel. The players play for themselves and for their teammates and for the Yankees pinstripes and for the fans of New York. Joe Girardi, made a mistake, but it's the same thing as if I would have made a big error. If I'm Bill Buckner and I make a big error, but my teammates happen to pick me up, they'll say, yeah, this one was for Bill. But that's just because they feel good for him. You don't want your teammate to be the GOAT. And so when Todd Frazier says, this one's for Joe, it's meaning, hey, man, you're a teammate of mine, and I'm picking you up, and this was for you so you don't feel like crap the rest of your career. And I think that's what his point was.
Now, maybe it's unfair to label it in just the three options, but having been in that room with Joe Girardi as the manager, Mark, would you say that the players love him, hate him, or are indifferent to him?
Oh, that is such an unfair question. I've been with you guys all year long, and you wait until the playoffs. Listen, I think that he is as well respected as any manager in baseball. But as Michael said, Joe's not a warm and cuddly guy. We know that. And he is a teammate. He's a guy that the Yankees trust and respect, and he puts the players in a position to succeed. The same can be said with every player on that team. The Yankees aren't playing for Brett Gardner. They're not playing for CC Sabathia. They're not playing for – they're playing for everybody. And, Joe just fits – Joe does his job just like Masahiro Tanaka does his job. And they're all a part of the same team.
I'm wondering how important – Gardner's at bat was and then the subsequent hit, because I don't know how much the Yankees could push Chapman 2 innings each time, because I think there's definitely a drop in stuff. Yesterday in the 9th inning, although it was a 3-run lead now rather than the 1 run it would have been if not for the hit, he's throwing 96, Mark. How long can they play that card to have him pitch 2 innings?
You're exactly right, Michael, and I was going to bring it up if you didn't. As much as excited as I was for the Yankees last night and for this series, you cannot go the rest of the postseason with your starters going 3 and 4 innings. You have to have more of those Tanaka-Severino starts where they go 6-7 strong, because by the end of the series, or by the end of the postseason, if they make it all the way to the World Series playing a good team like the Dodgers or the Nationals or the Cubs, your bullpen will be so taxed that they're done. And you saw it, Chapman, last year at the end of the World Series against the Indians. By Game 7, and he said it, by Game 7 he was done and gave up a big home run that ended up not mattering because they won the game. But the Yankees cannot continue to throw their bullpen as much as they did and expect to get out of it every single game.
Mark, your take on Judge, just one of those series or something you'd be concerned about moving forward?
I'm a little bit concerned, but the fact of the matter is that Judge has had these dips, and you're going to have dips in postseasons. Every postseason series is separate. So for me, the wild card game, he was great. He got a mistake, hit a home run. It was a big home run in the wild card game. This series against the Indians, he was not good. He got pitched tough. He swung at some bad pitches and probably let go some pitches he should have swung at. But I wiped the slate clean and tell Aaron Judge, hey, you're about to play in a great hitter's ballpark in Minute Maid. You can hit the ball the other way, sit back a little bit more, make sure the ball's up, and let's go out and have a great series.
You were there when Jeter retired. You were there when they brought in Didi. Did you ever expect Didi to be this good?
I didn't. I knew he would be a really good player, but to me, Didi Gregorius is a superstar, and he's not going to get the credit he deserves because there are so many other great shortstops in baseball, and he hasn't made an all-star game yet, and hasn't been on the national spotlight. But this guy does it all. He's got power. He puts together good at-bats. He'll take his walk. he plays a great shortstop. And I'm not a big advanced metrics type guy for shortstops. I'm not sure how he ranks, but the eye test, I played with Didi. I played with a lot of good shortstops. The eye test, he passes with flying colors at shortstop, and I want him on my team because of the type of dynamic player that he is.
All right, what kind of problems does Houston present that Cleveland didn't?
Offense. Cleveland's offense, as you said, was anemic by the end of. I think Cleveland peaked at the wrong time. I think they had a really nice run. They played in a division that was not very good this year in the AL Central. They had their 22-game win streak, and they were a really good team that went into the playoffs, and you start seeing some of their holes. And they didn't have, once Encarnacion's out of the lineup, they didn't have the power that Houston has. They don't have the right-left combo that Houston has. Houston has switch hitters up and down their lineup. The Indians did, but their two best switch hitters just stunk in Ramirez and Lindor. So I think the Astros showed how good they hit against Boston. I mean, they knocked around some really good pitchers in that Red Sox series, and I just think the overall offensive production that Houston's going to give you is far superior than what you saw in Cleveland.
Now, one advantage I think the Yankees have in any long series now, and that's why I thought it was important for them to get past the wild card, is they have 4 legitimate starters they could run out there. You look at the Astros, Keuchel tomorrow, and then Verlander, and then is it going to be Peacock? Are they going to take McCullers out of the bullpen and start him again? Is it going to be Morton? I mean, the first 2 are daunting tasks, but the Yankees showed they could beat Corey Kluber, so I just don't think that the negative for the Astros to me is they don't have depth in their rotation.
I agree. I think the Astros, while they are confident, they're taking the Yankees as this was the better team. They almost would have rather had Cleveland win last night because Cleveland's beat up a little bit. Their starting pitching was a little shaky in that series. But if the Yankees come into the Houston series and win Game 1, I think Yankees win the series. I think Game 1 is so important, and everyone says Game 1's important. But like you said, if Keuchel loses Game 1, their 3 and 4 starters are not as good as what the Yankees could throw out there 3 and 4. I think the Yankees got to feel good about where they are right now.